What's up, comic book fans? Pete here from Comic Books Transformed, where me and my good friend over there, Brian, discuss adaptations of comic books into streaming shows and movies. One of the things that started our journey that we've been on is WandaVision and basically, all of the MCU shows. So, Brian, when we last listed our MCU shows in order from least favorite to favorite, you picked WandaVision as your favorite, right?
No, I think Hawkeye's my favorite.
Okay.
WandaVision is pretty close after that, though. The journey on WandaVision was really great. They didn't really stick the landing on the ending. That kind of lowered it a bit. And I'm just a big Matt Fraction Hawkeye fan, and I feel like that was the closest we were ever going to get to it, sort of thing. And I enjoyed that as much as I think there were issues with that as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't remember my rankings, but I think I might have put WandaVision as my first one. And
I'm going to check right now.
Yeah. I love how I do like an intro where it's like this generic YouTuber, like, hey, welcome guys. And then like real strong. And then I'm like, right, Brian? And you're like, no. Like, oh.
No. So your list here on my sheet is not as updated because the last thing you have on here. Oh, wait a minute. This goes. Oh, did you go the opposite way that I did?
Probably. Who knows? I'm not the most organized fellow.
Oh yeah, you have WandaVision first. You have WandaVision, Falcon, What If, Loki, Miss Marvel, Hawkeye, Shield, Moon Knight.
Okay.
But that was pre. That was definitely not with Loki 2 involved.
Yeah. Well, who knows? I mean, what the fuck is even coming up on Disney Plus after this?
The Star Wars Goonies show.
That's but I mean, as far as Marvel, like, what is it? It's who?
The Marvel Zombies is still floating around out there. That's got to come out sometime soon. I imagine around Halloween makes sense.
Yeah.
I think
it's like an Ironheart show.
Ironheart is there. I don't know. That seems to be in like development hell. I don't know if I don't know if they filmed it or not, but it seems to keep getting pushed back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they basically said that they were really cutting back on a lot of things. They were trying to just make more, just the higher priority stuff and not making a show out of everything just to have content. I did see a recent rumor about Nova again, but it was one of those clickbait sites that I think could be total BS.
Yeah.
It was something about like Glenn Close and John C. Reilly reprising roles. But again, I think that was a clickbait site. I don't remember what it was. But other than that, I still don't understand what happened to Armor Wars. It was a TV show. It was a movie. Then I think they took it off a schedule. So I have no idea what's going on with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's they don't have much coming up here. There's also been rumors of a second season of Moon Knight being hinted at. And then that's probably it.
It's interesting, right? Because we're so engulfed in the discussion about streaming shows and comic book movies. There's always this talk about what's going on with the studios, how fans are reacting, what people like, what people don't like. And there's always this discussion about how they're like making the things that people don't necessarily want to see. And you brought up a really interesting point just now where you said that, they just kind of like make all this content and they're kind of trying to pull back at this point. And I know that like one of the recent articles I saw that I actually like read and didn't just click on for the title was how they were talking about how like the streaming bubble has burst. Now, like a show like Agatha all along, to me, at least on paper, that seems like, hey, need to make something. Okay, she was in this one show and people like her, so let's make a show.
Well, okay, let's be super honest here. Catherine Hahn totally stood out on WandaVision.
Yes.
And I think in general TV making world, if we completely remove this from like comics and, like characters that are more important than others, I think that order of things here is you have a breakout character on a show, you want to potentially see if you can spin them out.
Yes.
I think that makes total sense here. Now, if you involve the fact that Agatha Harkness is not a known character really outside of that show. I mean, she was created in the '60s, I believe, right? And she was like the Richards nanny
Yes, yes,
for a
yes.
while, and like she faded into obscurity fairly often. Honestly, she comes back every so often, then she fades out again.
Yeah.
And I think when we add that idea to it, it's like, why the fuck are they making this? Why don't they give me a show about a character I actually want? Speaking of which, Daredevil, that's the other thing that we have to be that we're excited about. Daredevil. Still no release date there, but I knew I was forgetting something big.
Good. Yeah, that's a perfect way to pull that back in. Good job. I mean, where's my fucking Darkhawk MCU show, right?
Yeah, give me Darkhawk.
All right,
I think Ghost Rider would be a really good. I mean, maybe too effects heavy, but that would be a good TV show.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's all these things that they could do. Like, I mean, I have a Marvel Unlimited account, and I'm just constantly going through books on there. There's so much that they could adapt, and so what they choose to adapt it's very interesting to me. And I think you're right. It's basically that Catherine Hahn is fantastic. She was the standout for this show, and so they're just trying to kind of capture that magic, pun intended, right? But what I was going to say to you was, we're both 42. You're not 43 yet, right? So, yeah. So, in all of our years of reading comics, which is like over 20 years, maybe go close to 30 years now, right? Have you ever actually read a comic with Agatha Harkness in it?
More recently, yeah, because I read the Midnight Suns miniseries that was from last year, where Agatha is in the comic and they actually DH her, so she's like younger and looks more like Catherine Hahn now.
Yeah, yeah. Was it good?
It was okay. It kind of spun out. I really liked the Midnight Suns video game, and I wanted more. And this was the closest thing that was coming out around then that was similar. And it featured a lot of the characters from that, not all, but it was more like a Strange Academy spinoff because it was all the magic characters.
Oh, okay, right.
Magic-based characters in there. And then they also had like Wolverine in there because he has to be in everything.
It's got to be in everything. Exactly. Yeah. Well, you know what? I don't think I've read a single book that has Agatha Harkness in it. I mean, maybe I've read a Scarlet Witch book and she was like a ghost in it and she was kind of like, advising her.
Did you ever read I can't remember if it's Avengers or Young Avengers, Children of Crusade. I think she appears as a ghost in that, or at least in a flashback.
Okay.
That was like a Tommy and Billy focused book with the Young Avengers, and it was post M Day, so like Scarlet Witch was still like a villainous figure in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was okay.
Okay, yeah. So maybe in that too, obviously she's not this like character with this storied history that like both you and I have read a bunch of her books and we're like, oh yeah, I want to know what happens. Like she doesn't have any kind of enemies or anything besides they're kind of making it like Scarlet Witch is kind of like her enemy now because of this show.
Yes.
Yeah. So with this show, the way they start out, we're going to cover the first 4 episodes. The 5th episode is actually premiering the day that we're recording this on Wednesday. This is going to come out on Thursday, though. So I was actually really worried when I saw the first episode. It seemed like they were trying to repeat that WandaVision formula. And so they were doing like a Mayor of Easttown parody. I knew it wasn't going to last. I was figuring, okay, probably this first episode, then it's just going to be sort of more episodic and just like all the other MCU shows. But, oh, man, I thought that the Mayor of Easttown part and just the way that she was acting on the dialogue, I was like, oh, this is really fucking lame. What did you think?
I actually enjoyed it. You could tell she was hamming it up a little bit, like trying to be serious, but like, like wink, wink, like we know something's up here. And I also read that this was an idea they actually had pitched for WandaVision to have this kind of procedural episode as one of the things, but they decided it didn't fit in with the sitcom theme. So they axed it and they saved it for this instead. So that's why. So this was actually that how it connects to WandaVision. It was intended for that initially. Oh. And I think it was a nice way to bridge these shows thematically. That WandaVision was very TV sitcom focused, and this is really WandaVision season 2 if you think about it. and they connected that TV theme with it, and it works story wise because that's what happened. Wanda trapped Agatha in Westview, in one of the roles that she was playing as like punishment for trying to steal her power. So it kind of works, and I understand what you mean. It was a little over the top, cheesy, trying to be a rip off of Mayor of Easttown, but I thought it worked well enough. I didn't think anything horribly negative about it after the first episode.
Oh man, Brian, I think that maybe you are my own personal actually guy. And that like the actually part is you're like, actually it was good. Like that's what happens every time. Like, all right, never mind. Okay, I guess it was good. Dramatically. Okay, all right, you got it. But
I think when I don't like when things don't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, and if they do make sense, I kind of like it almost makes it seem good to me. Like that's a qualifier enough to make it seem good enough to me.
Yes.
Which is such a baseline thing to want. Is just like, oh, I just want my shows to make sense. That's all I care about, to make it good, to make it seem good to me. But it doesn't happen that often.
Right, exactly. I was going to say, and especially with these MCU shows, like when you start to compare like the MCU movies and the shows, then there's like this discrepancy too, where you're like, that doesn't make sense. What about this in the movies? Yeah. And it can be very frustrating. But I do think there is a like formula for when this stuff works and when it doesn't. Even when it doesn't make sense, this formula works, and it's basically when the casting is working, where like the writing is good enough to where the dialogue doesn't feel awkward, and then like the acting shows through. With this particular show, like on paper, when people were describing the show, when it was just being pitched, when it was just being formed, I was like, this just sounds like this is like more of this stuff that we don't really want to see. And I have to admit that like the sort of like the middle-aged white guy comic book fan part of me was like kind of creeping out and being like, oh, it's a show about all these women and it looks like there's a gay guy, and like I was like, oh, they're just kind of pandering to this audience,
and everyone's a different race too, everything like that. Yeah, I had all those same thoughts as well, honestly. Like hearing we were talking about what we were going to review after Terminator. I'm like, I guess we could do Agatha. It's there. I like it was so low on my priority list,
right?
And maybe that's why I've kind of enjoyed it so much.
Right. Well, I think that's what it is.
I had no expectations for it.
Right. And that's what it is. It's like, I went into this, and especially I had that thought that I was like, oh, Brian and I might not actually cover this. Like, we might not have to sit down every week and watch this and talk about it. So, like, who cares? But then it just kind of clicks within that second episode. That second episode, it's like she goes and she starts to recruit all the witches for her coven. And it's very much like a heist where you go get all these people where they're all like, all right, God damn it, I'm in, right? And you meet these characters and you think, okay, here's this like Asian woman. I don't know what age she is or whatever. Here's this like, black bald woman over here. Here's this woman from that 70s show. Like it just feels like they're checking off boxes. But then each of these characters I find compelling, and I actually legitimately by episode 4, I'm like, oh no, I hope they don't kill all these people, sort of like they're suggesting they're going to.
Yes, I completely agree, and I'm kind of sad. I mean, I don't know if God, I don't know if I'm supposed to call her Mrs. Hart or Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
I guess her real name is Mrs. Davis. So I guess I was like, oh no, they killed. Well, I said, oh no, they killed Kitty. Because I just see her as from that 70s show, really.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
I didn't even like that show that much, but like I just like that. To me, that's who that is.
No, I get it, and she's real funny as that character in this show. Like this kind of, she's got that voice, and she's kind of annoying and kind of clueless, but it works. Yeah. I would personally prefer if she's fucking dead completely and that's it. But I feel like she's gonna come back by the end of the show.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to kind of see how the rest of it plays out. They very clearly bury her.
Yeah.
And then Aubrey. I can't speak. Aubrey Plaza.
Yes.
Comes out of the grave all creepy like.
Yes. Aubrey Plaza. Let's go right to that. Actually, okay. So since we're already saying the middle-aged white guy comic book thing, I'm gonna say another thing. Who like it wouldn't be considered PC or whatever nowadays. Who gives a shit, right? But like I just think fuck. Okay, she's got some kind of glyph on us where we can't say her name.
Yes,
I think that
nice over there.
I just think that she's so fucking hot. Like, you know, if you make a list of like actresses that I'm attracted to, just Aubrey Plaza, maybe it's at the top of my list. And I feel like this show is like capitalizing on that. They're like, let's make Aubrey Plaza attractive, and let's make there be this tension between Catherine Hahn and Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah, they did a really good job with that in that last episode, episode 4.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've already kind of said some spoilers. We talked about that woman dying and stuff. Let's go ahead and just say that we're talking spoilers for Agatha all along. And then here comes a spoiler for something that hasn't happened, but it's pretty much confirmed that she is death, right?
Yeah, it's very obvious that she's death. I mean, no, it is, because I mean, I guess I'll just say it. I was spoiled by a freaking Funko Pop.
That same thing with me. Yeah.
Apparently that's saying it's also spoiled who Teen is, which I'm sure we're all thinking is the same thing. But,
is it Billy?
But I have not seen that.
The Funko Pop showed Billy then?
I haven't seen the Funko Pop of Teen, but apparently it does spoil it.
Okay.
But I've been trying to avoid it.
Okay, well, let's talk about that idea, right? So one of the things in the show is there's a character that everyone calls Teen, because every time he goes to say his name, it does a little Neo, his mouth fusing together from the first Matrix, but it's like a glyph.
Which I see a little M there.
Yeah, right. For like Maximoff, right. And so
I was thinking the other M word that we said every week, and everyone said every week in WandaVision, Mephisto.
Oh, and there is reference to Mephisto in this show too.
There is. But again, They could be just doing that as a joke to everybody that, you know, said that about the last show.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about Mephisto in a second, but for Teen, because that's what we're going to call him for now, I think he's great. I think that Joe Locke is great in that role. You know, he's got that enthusiasm. You care about him from episode 1. But then there's this theme, and I was going to mention this before. I don't know if I necessarily like the theme that both Wanda and Agatha seem to have this like hole in their soul, maybe even literally, over the loss of their children. And then that's sort of like a motivating factor. Like, I don't want that to be that like the main witch characters that are in the MCU.
But that's both their comic characters. I mean,
did Agatha Harkness, the character, sell her kid?
I don't know if he sold her. I don't know all the deals, but her kid was Nicholas Scratch, and he did work for Mephisto. So, I mean, she does have a child, and he did turn bad. So it kind of makes sense to, I mean, how many, I don't want to say how many magic characters are there, but I guess there really are a lot. So, but yeah, I think it works here because the character was introduced and it's a thematic relation. They both have that same kind of loss. I can see how it's like a weird coincidence in a way.
Yeah.
Oh, there's 2 female magic users and they're both, you know, grieving mothers.
Yeah.
I guess you could argue Clea exists, but you know.
Yeah. I mean, and whenever I think of magic users in comics, I always feel like there's more in DC, and I always think of like Zatanna, for instance, right?
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't have any of this kind of baggage, and she uses magic. But a few things. One of the things I don't like about MCU shows is that the big reveal of the villain is usually not that exciting, or that the main villain, because usually in all this Marvel shit, there's like 2 villains. There's like a villain that they're fighting most of the time, and then there's like, it was this person's bad too, right?
Yep.
But I think that in this show, there aren't scenes where they cut to a villain, because I think essentially Agatha is the villain, even though she's the protagonist. She's like the villain, right?
Yeah, but
go ahead.
No, you go.
Well, and then of course I think Aubrey Plaza is like the villain too, but like you could easily frame it as if neither of them are the villain, that they're both protagonists in this group of characters, and it almost feels like there is no villain. They're just these characters that are on this road for this adventure.
Yeah, I was gonna say that especially starting off, Agatha seems very much like the villain of the show in a way.
Yeah.
But you can tell that she's like her heart is slowly melting, and she's becoming she's endearing herself to these people, and she actually is starting to care about them, I think, and that's what's going to happen towards the end there.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to Teen. I think she's very protective of Teen, and it feels weird saying that, but
I know, agreed. Yeah, I totally agree with you that she's kind of making that character turn. What I've actually enjoyed the most about the show is how kind of selfish she seems and how little she cares about the other characters. Like when Mrs. Hart or whatever her name dies, she forgets who she is. That's the end of the second episode where she's like, who? And she forgets who she is, right? And also, like, there's a couple scenes where it's like she's ready to just throw them away and she doesn't care if they die. Actually, I think in the second episode, right before they go onto the road, she almost like kind of goads them into blasting her so she could do her power where she sucks up their energy,
Yeah, no, that was right before they go onto the road themselves. Yeah, she's trying to get the doll fight. That might have actually been her intention the whole time, but she did seem surprised when the door of the road actually opened.
Yeah.
So I will also say too that those witches that were chasing her, which I think are supposed to be the witches from her original coven. I'm not 100% sure on that, but they were kind of creepy.
Absolutely creepy. The Salem 7, and I think they are literally from the comics too.
Yeah, I think so. But that one, there was that one that crawled down the steps, but they were always like, oh shit, that's kind of terrifying.
Yeah. It's like the way that Scarlet Witch was in Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, there's a YouTuber that I think he lives in Austin, actually. I love his channel. I'm going to plug it. Comic Drake. And he actually did a video on Agatha recently, and he covers all this stuff. And I think he mentions the Salem 7 in there. And he was it was very helpful for this discussion, just kind of knowing about Agatha, because I don't know.
I think I did watch that, but I think we planned on reviewing this a while back, and I probably forgot everything they said in there.
It's all good. It's all good. So we have the other characters, and like I said, they are likable. You have Jennifer Kale, and she's like a bound sorceress. So essentially, to me, that feels like she's just like cut off from her power source.
Yes. Yeah.
And
she did something that somebody took her powers away for it. They have sort of elaborated on it as they got on, but I don't exactly remember who did it.
Yeah, it was some kind of man, and I think she talks about it. She says like she got invited to some kind of event, but it was really a trap, and the guy took her powers.
Yeah, I'm curious if that's a character we know or anything like that. Like, what if it was like Wong?
Oh, that'd be fucked up. This other side to him, yeah. Wong's actually this predator. But so with the characters, it's been kind of formulaic, at least for the last 2 episodes, where it's like they go to the house. The house is always on the road, and then the house has some kind of special theme. 2 episodes ago, it was this sort of like Real Housewives kind of vibe, and then the test was it had to do with water. They drank poison, and then in this last episode, they went to Alice. I mentioned this Asian woman, right? But Alice, and it was like her house that she grew up in, and her mom was actually a witch that had a big rock band in like the 70s and I guess 80s too.
Yes. I kind of like these themed episodes like this and this change there. It kind of makes it feel like it's like an escape room, like a themed escape room, but they're like really like cosplaying into it. So yeah, I have found it interesting like that. Just I like little solving puzzles and mysteries and things like that. So I have found that appealing. And again, speaking of creepy things, the demon that was cursing their family, also kind of creepy.
Yeah, perfect for Halloween month. They timed this just right.
Yeah, just like we had Werewolf by Night. That wasn't last year, was it? Was that 2 years ago?
I think it was 2 years ago at this point, but I might be wrong.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're right. It is creepy. It was cool that like she had this mark on her, this burn on her from this family curse, and she said that she was trying to convince herself it was a birthmark. Um, like every time they go to one of these houses, they always think that like we get like little glimpses into each other the witches' backstories, right? So for her, it was like stuff with her mom, and then each of the houses has some sort of like elemental theme to it. Like the first one, like I said, was water. This one was fire. The whole house starts to go on fire in this episode. And we've gotten little glimpses for each one. We haven't really gotten the backstory yet for Lilia, and she's played by like I didn't even know Patty LuPone really. Do you know Patty LuPone?
It's funny. I was just watching last week tonight from this week, and there was a joke about Cats, and apparently she's from Cats.
Okay. Yeah, I often watch a lot of my shows and stuff when I'm at my mom's. That's where I do recording sometimes, and my mom's sometimes watching it with me, or she's walking by, and she's like, Patty LuPone, and she was like all impressed by Patty LuPone because she's apparently some sort of big musical star, and she's been in movies. So when they did this like rock opera episode, this last episode, I thought she was gonna like take it away, but she's just like smacking a fucking tambourine.
She'll have her episode, obviously. Like you said there, we have not really seen what her backstory is yet. There's some hinting of some kind of forgetfulness, some Alzheimer's signs, maybe.
Yeah.
We're seeing things, so I'm sure that I bet her story's going to come next. Honestly,
Yeah.
they already covered Jennifer and Alice.
Right. Wait. Did they cover Jennifer? Like she didn't really have her like challenge, or it was her challenge the fact that she like came up with the antidote.
It was the water and the potions thing. Like that was her house there. We didn't get a lot of the backstory of her character, but I think that was her. That was her episode essentially. Maybe we'll get some more later on also, but I'm fully expecting the next one to be the Lilia episode.
Okay. Well then. That you are very smart and observant because I didn't even think of that. And I like how like on the houses they have like the phases of the moon, and so they're like, okay, this is the water phase, of the fire phase. So I'm guessing it's like the elements. So I guess there'll be like an earth phase and an air phase, I guess.
Yeah.
It's cool. I'm digging it, but I think that we should go to that Mephisto reference before we wrap this all up. So. Jen is the one that mentions Mephisto. I think she's talking to Teen, and she says, "Oh, maybe that Agatha is a servant of Mephisto or something like that." So I don't think that Mephisto is going to be in this at all. What about you?
No, I don't think so either. I think it's too. I think it's enough that we have death here, and I don't think there's going to be any major character reveal. That's another issue I have with some of the shows is sometimes they reveal the villain too late.
Yeah.
It's hard because if you have the villain in too early, it's like, what do you really have them do the whole time? And then if you show them too late, it's like, well, what, I'm not invested in this as much because I haven't seen anything from them. So it's hard. Like I feel like we've probably gotten most of the characters here, and I don't know if there'll be another villain outside of what we've already mentioned about Agatha herself being a villain, and then Aubrey Plaza's Rio Vidal.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I love that little point you made about the timing of the villain because, like, when you see, for instance, Ethan Hawke's bad guy in Moon Knight, right? Like, he's cool, and Ethan Hawke is an amazing actor, and I think he's an interesting bad guy, but they introduce him like right away in Moon Knight, right? And you always kind of feel like, all right, get to the point, get to the battle. Otherwise, you're just sort of always sitting there like making schemes. It doesn't seem like you're very effective.
Yeah, agreed.
Right. So my last question for you is Wanda going to show up in the show?
No. I think, and actually, there's one other thing I like to say about the first episode too. When I said I like how things make sense and connect, essentially Wanda dying in Doctor Strange freed Agatha from the spell. So I like that they touched upon that, and they added, and the mystery was around Wanda's body, even though it's not actually Elizabeth Olsen under there, but I did like that touch. I don't think she will be in the show. I think they are going to bring her back somehow. Maybe they'll even reference that whatever they're doing is bringing her back, but I don't think Elizabeth Olsen will be actually on the show in any capacity other than potentially a last second cameo stinger at the very end.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I guess like the way the formula is going and stuff, because there's 8 episodes, right?
Yeah, so we have 5 tonight, and we have, so we got 4 more basically.
Right. So, I mean, they really could have like 2 more with this like theme of like going to the houses and, going through the individual witches. Like it'll either be like, with the Patti LuPone one, and then we have Agatha having like their own house, or maybe like Patti LuPone and Aubrey Plaza. And then like maybe there's like this sort of like battle or something for the last 2 episodes. That's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, so there's one thing about that too. So I'm assuming Patti LuPone is going to be the representative for Air, because they made a big deal about. So Aubrey Plaza is standing in for the Green Witch. They said they made a big deal about needing a Green Witch for the road. And when they were doing the heist recruitment scene, there was one name on that list that Agatha said, "Oh no, not them, forget them." And that's when they had to stand in as Mrs. Hart, stand in for her. So I don't know what they're going to do about that episode, and I'm still curious if that is going to that could be a character that they can still bring in somehow. The reason, because I doubt that name was Aubrey Plaza. That doesn't make sense.
Right. Agreed.
So I feel like that's something we're supposed to pay attention to, and they try and make us forget about it, but sort of remind us about it at the same time. And that's going to come back. The other thing too is that we kind of mentioned that the identity of Teen is a big mystery here. We're all assuming and hoping, I suppose, that it's Wiccan, Billy Maximoff, but they're also sort of hinting that it could be Agatha's son, so it could be Nicholas Scratch at the same time. So I'm kind of torn there. I don't know. I mean, I would obviously rather it be Wiccan because I still want a Young Avengers movie, although I'm guessing we're not ever going to get a standalone movie with that. Even though they've introduced pretty much every character in some fashion so far. Yeah, and that's it. I'm enjoying the show a lot more than I expected. And yeah, I'm excited to watch this episode tonight.
Do you think that they might like kill 2 birds with one stone? And because they just basically said that Agatha like sold her child to the devil or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. So do you think they might kill 2 birds with one stone, and like her son is also Wanda's son? Like they're able to like bring him back.
Oh, maybe like Billy Maximoff is inside the body of Agatha's son because she sold his soul.
Yeah, or maybe the inverse, right? Because like Agatha's kids were like kind of like constructs that she made out of magic, right? So maybe it's like
Wanda's kids were.
Right. Thank you. Right. Wanda's kids, right. So like maybe his soul goes into Wanda's kid's body, the construct's body, and makes it a person.
I would think it the other way around because she sold her son's soul. So that means there was a body and is missing this piece as the soul. Billy and Tommy are just a soul equivalent because they're just magic. So that goes in and they combine. So that I think that actually might be viable.
Yeah, and see, that'd be kind of cool and interesting because then it takes this like, oh, we're both missing our children. This is our motivation. And it makes them their like co-mothers, this kind of like lesbian co-mother thing, which I think fits with Disney and Marvel these days.
Yes. The one problem I have with all this is if this is actually Wiccan, is how the hell did they do Hulkling? Because with She-Hulk, we were introduced to Hulk's son, but it's Scar. Yeah. So how are we going to have Scar around and Hulkling at the same time?
Ugh.
Like, how are you going to split that up?
Yeah.
Story-wise,
Oh, yeah, that's gross, man. Yeah, I don't know because like I wasn't impressed with Scar just showing up at like some random family barbecue in
It was a little
She-Hulk.
weird. It looked a little
Yeah.
weird too.
Yeah, it just seems like forgettable, you know? So it's like I don't know, man. Maybe one way you could retcon that is once again kill two birds with one stone and make it like Scar is claiming to be the Hulk's son, but it's really like a scroll or something. I don't fucking know. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not actually the Hulk's son.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that
I
could
don't know.
work.
Yeah. All right. Well, who knows, man? We only got 4 episodes left. But I think we both like this show. So luckily next week we can start just doing one at a time.
Well, we
But
probably
I
get two next week because we'll have tonight's and next Wednesdays. So
oh, there's
probably get
Brian
two
with the
next
I'm
time.
actually
Then we'll do 1-on-1. Yeah.
yes. He's like, I'm actually you got the episode count wrong. He got nice. All right. Well, we're gonna hop out of here and we're gonna cover the Penguin now. So make sure you guys subscribe if you're not. Let us know what you're thinking of Agatha all along, and we will see you guys next time.